the thing that really spoke to me and started me on this journey actually was how carbon is found in all different ways. You can have it in coal, but also in diamonds, and it's made of the same material. You know, that dark, messy stuff is actually the same chemical component as you find in diamonds, and actually that we are in the process of being transformed, of being polished, of being turned from one thing into its glorious new creation. So that is the journey that we're on. But you're right, it is the stuff that makes that coal into the diamonds is the question, isn't it? And actually, if you look at coal, it's put under incredible pressure underground and heat and, as I said, enormous pressure. And that's what shapes it and changes it into something remarkable. And so although often we look at stuff in our life that might be more challenging or more difficult, the pressures that we have, actually, if we look at it, often in hindsight, sadly, but if we look at it also as an opportunity for us to be able to grow into something that could be more useful, more beautiful, more resilient and stronger as a result as well, that might be a positive way of looking at it.
Now, fairly early on in the book, you talk about an experience you had when you were at university where you kind of felt quite down, really, with life. And I think for a lot of us, we can have seasons of negativity. So looking back now, can you see some of the things that you learnt in that season?
Yeah, that was a very dark time, actually. And, most of my life is okay, but there have been seasons where it has been very challenging. And that was a particularly low time when my family had fallen apart fairly spectacularly, very difficult divorce of my parents, and I'd really blown my A-levels quite badly. I managed to scrape through to university, but I was very low, very, very lonely, actually. And it was the local church. I'd never been to church before, but somebody invited me to this ancient little Brethren chapel. It was a few old people and an organ. But I tell you what, those people loved me. They absolutely loved me, and they accepted me, and they welcomed me into what I now know to be the Christian family. And I think I discovered there what love looks like and what acceptance looks like. And actually, it's made me think in the years after that about that we're all the welcome team. Welcome teams in churches aren't just people with Colgate smiley grins and special T-shirts and a lanyard, that actually we're all the welcome team. And what they did for me is what we all have to do for other people. Welcome them into our homes to play board games, invite people on walks with us as families, and just make people feel like actually the Christian family is a place where you experience God's love and welcome. So I did learn some really important stuff. And most importantly, I found out about God and his love for me during that time, which is brilliant.
Well, obviously, that's the key thing in the whole journey. Yeah. But I think just there, as you're saying, we're all called to be the welcome team. I think it's a reminder that we can perhaps do some very small things, invite someone for a walk, invite someone to our home. And actually, that could be pivotal in their journey with God.
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the things I talk about a lot in this book is how we treasure stuff that is outwardly, superficially very beautiful and expensive. But really, more than anything else, this book, which is funny, there's lots of funny and silly stuff in there, but actually it is really a call to go deeper past the surface, past what we think is attractive or compelling or the most powerful, and realise that once we dig past the surface, there's stuff in all of us that's valuable, and there's treasure in all of us that God wants to use. None of us are exempt from that. God hasn't given permission slips to the special shiny people. Actually, there's treasure that we've all got, really.
Now, you do mention in the book that you have a very large diamond that you bought as a prop for a talk. I mean, that must have been a rather crazy moment, turning up at a talk with a big diamond. So what was the whole point of that?
Well, it was quite a few years ago now, and I bought this giant diamond to talk about how...
Presumably not a real one. That would be very expensive.
Yeah. Not up to that yet. Not quite. I need a kind of bestseller before I can even think about that. But no, it was really to talk about how multifaceted we are, how strong and resilient we are, how beautiful we are in God's eyes. And hilariously, last month I spoke at a conference and I was speaking about this book. So I took the diamond with me, but I flew. And on the way back, security pulled me over and said, "We found something in your hand luggage we want to talk about." And they dragged out this giant diamond. And it was hilarious. The man opened the box and he just looked at me. And I said, "Come on now, even the Queen doesn't have a diamond that big. You must know this is fake."
So you didn't suddenly share the talk there and then in the airport.
I really missed that opportunity. I think I was so nervous.
That's the trouble when you're in these situations and you're being scrutinised. Suddenly your heart's beating. You think,
I know.
I can't think straight.
I know.
I think one of the other things that comes through is that sometimes we can be afraid to dream, afraid to look and see the beautiful things in our lives. Do you think that actually is the symptom of many of us in church, that we're a little bit scared?
We are scared, but I think also, we're sometimes looking in the wrong places for our dreams. And I think that is the whole thing about digging a bit deeper. And there's this brilliant story that I found and stolen and put in the book about this South African farmer who spent his life looking for the dream, looking for a diamond to be found. And he travelled and he ended up selling everything he had to try and find a diamond to make his fortune. And he never managed to. And eventually the person who bought his farm actually found this giant stone, weird looking stone, put it on his mantelpiece that he'd found on the farm, and somebody actually came in and said, "Can I look at that that stone?" Which turned out to be the largest diamond that had ever been found. That's now the Kimberley diamond mine, the biggest mine in the world. And the fact is that he was looking for his dream for elsewhere. And Jesus talks to us about the fact that when we find treasure in a field, we should sell everything and invest in it. And I think sometimes there is stuff beneath our own feet, in our own life, that God has given us incomparable riches for us to explore, things that we really should value and could value, dreams that maybe aren't as glamorous as we see in other people, but they are glamorous if they're our story, and other people might look at our story in the same way as we look at others. So again, I would really say it's about digging deeper where we are and actually discovering the dream that God does have for us, as opposed to focusing on maybe some that he doesn't.
You mentioned there how we can look to one another, and that is another theme that comes through in the book, this idea of how we can compare ourselves, even in church, looking at what God's doing in other people's lives. Do you think that's kind of one of the diseases in the church that's holding us all back a bit?
I have been crippled with this disease for years. So I'm a minister's wife, but I'm like the least minister's wife, if there is such a thing. I've never met a typical minister's wife, actually, so that's rubbish, that stereotype. But I remember in the early years thinking, oh my goodness, I should be able to serve tea and coffee. I should be able to make cakes. I should do flowers. And I am absolutely hopeless. And I'm not very good at pastoral stuff. And I've often looked at women, particularly, who can do those things, who are very gentle, who are very hospitable, and I have felt this deep sense of inadequacy, and it has taken me quite a long time, and I'm not probably there yet, but
it's a journey.
I know, where you actually look at yourself and go, well, what treasures, what gems has God actually put in me that he wants me to polish up? What's uniquely me? I can't serve tea and coffee without slopping it everywhere, but maybe I can give a talk at something, or I can encourage someone or train them or mentor them. And the person serving the tea and coffee might not be able to do that. And so neither of us is better or worse. We're just unique. And every diamond is absolutely unique. And that's one of the things we look in this, that, we are actually unique. And let's celebrate that rather than comparing ourselves negatively with other people.
Wow, some great wise words there from Cathy Madavan. We're talking this morning about her brand new book released today called Digging for Diamonds, Finding Treasure in the Messiness of Life.
Tune in to Woman with Maria Rodrigues, weekdays from 10:35 a.m, only on Premier Christian Radio, where faith comes to life.